On a January day in New Orleans, the AFL champion Kansas City Chiefs were 13-point underdogs in their Super Bowl IV meeting with the NFL champs, the Minnesota Vikings. It was the conclusion to the 1969 pro football season, and the Chiefs completed it that day with a dominating 23-7 victory, led by the game's most valuable player, Len Dawson.
Go ahead, Mike, Lenny Dawson.
Lenny Dawson leads the field.
Way to go, Leonard! That's the way to go, Leonard. You done good, kid.
Lenny Dawson, listen to the crowd. One of the great underrated quarterbacks in the history of professional football. Lenny Dawson almost makes you cry. The stuff he's had to take, and the year he's had with a broken hand, the bad knees, fought a dime, but he did it today.
I can visualize it. When Hank took me out with a minute and a half or 2 minutes to go, whatever it was in the ball game, we had it wrapped up, and it was just something like, a weight come off my shoulders, my whole body, because, geez, we finally did it. We talk about it every year, winning the biggest prize there is, and that's the Super Bowl, but we actually accomplished that thing.
The 34-year-old quarterback had reached the top of the football world, a spot that seemed improbable just 8 years earlier when his career was stymied due to inactivity. Len's climb to the pinnacle of his sport became one of the game's legendary tales. The Len Dawson story began in the small Ohio burg of Alliance, just east of Canton, the town considered the birthplace of professional football. Len excelled at Alliance High School, becoming a sought-after recruit by many college programs.
Well, I'm from Ohio, and Ohio State was a big football factory back in those days. They had a guy named Woody Hayes that was the coach. Woody Hayes got a hold of me, and he was recruiting me. And he said, I'll tell you what you do. He says, we're going to teach you the option offense. And he says, well, you get under the center, and you've got three backs behind you. He said, you take the snap, step into the line of scrimmage. Now, that got my attention right there, because that was all the problems were up from the inside the line of scrimmage there. But anyway, he says, and you have a back that's going to dive straight ahead. You either hand it to him or you fake it to him and continue on down the line of scrimmage, and we're going to option off of the defensive end. And I said, what do you mean option? Well, if he goes after you, then you pitch it to the trailing back come around there. And if it looks like he's getting the trailing back, then you run the football. I wasn't the smartest guy in the block, but I said to myself, I'm going to let the defensive end, that big hungry guy, the nasty guy, make the decision as to who he's going to hit. I know who he's going to hit. It's going to be me. And so that's what I just said. I think I'm going to West Lafayette, Indiana, where Purdue is located.
It was Purdue where he connected with a young assistant coach named Hank Stram.
Freshmen did not play any games when I was in college at Purdue University, so we were the fodder for the varsity, let them beat up on us. But the first opportunity was a sophomore. We were playing Missouri, and I was not the starting quarterback. I was a backup quarterback because the number one quarterback was the starting quarterback from the year before. Well, here comes Missouri, and so I get into the game. In the first half, I ended up throwing 4 touchdown passes in that game, and now I became the starting quarterback the rest of my career at Purdue University. So I've always had Missouri to thank for a lot of the success that I had in college football.
Len was a 3-year starter for the Boilermakers and led the Big Ten Conference in passing his senior year. But unbeknown to Len, his plan to sell insurance after graduation would be altered after receiving a phone call from the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers had made him the 5th selection in the 1957 draft. Len was headed to the NFL. The Steelers' veteran coach duo of Buddy Parker and Bobby Lane left Len with little playing time in his first 3 seasons. Then in 1960, Len was traded to the Cleveland Browns, where he appeared in just 9 games over the next 2 seasons. After 5 years, his professional football career had ground to a halt. But in 1962, a casual encounter with an old friend would change the course of Len's life.
Hank Stram was the coach of the Dallas Texans, and he was at a coaches meeting in Pittsburgh where I was living at the time, and we had breakfast together, and he could see that I wasn't really happy with what was going on in my life professionally because I wasn't getting an opportunity to play. And he, at that time, says, listen, if you ever get a release from the National Football League, give me a call. And I got to thinking about that, and I had spent 5 years in the National Football League and really hadn't played. And so I thought, it's now or never. So I went to Paul Brown and asked him to put me on waivers. He put me on waivers in the summertime. You got to bear in mind that back in those days, in June, all the coaches took the month off before going to training camp. So I went through waivers. Later on, I talked to some coaches from other teams. They said, we didn't even know you were on waivers. If we knew that, we would have picked you up. But what happened was it gave me an opportunity to compete for a job with the Dallas Texans. And fortunately, things worked out very well.
It took time for Len to knock off the rust accumulated in 5 years on the NFL sidelines. But one observer was impressed, the Texans owner, Lamar Hunt. After watching his new passer in the preseason, Hunt personally made the only trade of his career, sending the Texans' previous starting quarterback, Cotton Davidson, to Oakland for the Raiders' first-round selection in the 1963 AFL Draft. And Hunt's faith in Dawson was rewarded.
Teams now have played more than 77 minutes today of hard, bruising football. Quarterback sneak of Dawson. He angles slightly to the middle of the field to get that ball in position. And now if Dallas puts this field goal, they will win the American League Championship. Len Dawson will hold at the Dallas bench. The big rush is on. The kick is up. The kick is good. Dallas is the champion. Dallas wins it on a 24-yard field goal by Tommy Brooker.
The Texans were the 1962 AFL champions, and Len Dawson was named the league's most valuable player. But just months after the title game, change would once again come in the form of a phone call. Chiefs founder Lamar Hunt.
I got a call from the mayor of Kansas City, and he inquired about the possibility of moving the team to Kansas City. I had been to Kansas City and attended a weekend baseball series. The Yankees and A's were playing, and all 3 games were sold out, and it was a very impressive thing to me.
Len and the Texans would move to Kansas City. There would be 3 AFL championships, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl victory, and 7 All-Star Pro Bowl appearances for Len. Qualifications that would earn him a return to Ohio and enshrinement in Canton's Pro Football Hall of Fame, an honor he was informed of in 1987 while filming an episode of HBO's Inside the NFL. The announcement by co-host Nick Boynicati revealed a rare moment of emotion from a man whose calm demeanor earned him the nickname Lenny the Cool.
We're going out to tape the show, and my wife was with me, and she said, I'll stay at the hotel in case they call.
She came up to me and whispered in my ear, Lenny made the Hall of Fame. I said, don't tell him. I said, we'll break it on the show.
We just found out, of course, that you were named to the NFL Football Hall of Fame.
It was an unbelievable feeling. I can't tell you how the show ended or anything else, because my mind was somewhere else at that particular time.
When I say good things happen to good people, they really mean it when I talk about you. Congratulations, my man.
I hate to get choked up on the last show, but I really appreciate that.
Len's second career broadcasting began even while he was the starting quarterback for the Chiefs.
I would practice out at the Swope Park area. We get through about 5 o'clock. I'd quickly get in and shower, get dressed, and go down to Channel 9 to do the 6 o'clock sports. Then I'd go home and have dinner with my family, drive back down at the station, do the 10 o'clock show, and go back home.
Len Dawson became a fixture on Kansas City television on the nightly news at 6 and 10 o'clock. After his retirement as a player in 1975, he would become a color commentator for NBC, and eventually 33 years as the color commentator for the Chiefs radio network. But it was a small cable TV upstart that would make his face and voice familiar to football fans in every corner of the country.
The HBO show came about. This was a new cable company, and so they approached me and said, would you be interested in this? I said, well, I'd be interested in it, but I'm under contract to NBC. I have to ask them. They said, why don't you ask them? Well, when I presented it to NBC, they said, well, that's cable. That's nothing. Go ahead. Yeah, enjoy it. Go do it.
HBO's Inside the NFL became one of the longest-running programs in cable television history. It would change the way fans watched and consumed National Football League games, and as one of the 2 hosts for 24 seasons, his Emmy Award-winning work would lead to enshrinement in Canton once again, this time as a broadcaster.
But you don't get up here by yourself. You don't do it alone. You need an awful lot of help. And I have been very, very fortunate. I am the 7th son of a 7th son. And all my life they've said, hey, that's good luck. Well, I am here to attest that that is definitely very, very fortunate.
Len's storybook life was not easily written. He battled adversity both personally and professionally. But despite the difficulties, he would achieve nearly every accolade possible from his two industries. And through it all, he remained rooted in his adopted home of Kansas City.
The people of Kansas City, for those of you who don't know those folks, is some kind of town.
Lamar Hunt was a savior for an awful lot of us. I know he was for me. He is always going to be very special in my thoughts.
The epilogue for this hero would be yet another chapter of adversity. Len would battle Alzheimer's and possibly the effects of a career of concussions suffered playing the sport he loved so dearly. He leaves behind a wife he adored, 2 grown children, and an entire world of friends and fans. Those that will not forget what this Hall of Fame legend did both on and off the field. Remembering our teammate, our colleague, our friend, Leonard Ray Dawson.